Perfect. So thank you very much, Nandan, for the intro. So like Nandan mentioned, we're the two founders of Automagica. And with Automagica, we want to do it completely different from the existing vendors in the market because our core is completely open source and you can find it on GitHub. So it's really important to know that for Automagica, what is our end game? What is our goal? Basically allow anyone to automate any task which can be performed on the screen, on any screen really. But I will show you in a minute how we do that. What is really important to know as well is that to get started with Automagica, the easiest way is, let me just share my screen. I hope you can see it. The easiest way is to either go to our website, automagica.com. That way you will be able to download it, or you can go to github.com/automagica/automagica. And that way you will end up in our open source repository on GitHub, where you can also find information like documentation, some examples, and how to install on all different platforms, because that's also something we distinguish from other vendors. Our robots can run on basically any platform that can run Python. So that means even Linux machines, but also Mac OS is supported for a robot. So it's really easy to get started automating with RPA with Automagica on basically any platform. For Windows, we provide a one-click installer, which you can download through our website. For the other platforms, you can easy install it with just one console command, but you can find the details in our GitHub. Don't forget to star and fork our GitHub, by the way.
Exactly. If there are any people who like to develop in Python, feel free to join our community. We have some guidelines on how to contribute. Even if you're not a developer and you see that something is missing, we're very welcoming to opinions from the public. So if you miss something, or if there's any activity that you would like to see, just create an issue and we will reply to you as soon as possible. We try to be as complete as possible. We have quite some activities. I think we're over 300 at the moment. But whenever something's missing, please let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for that addition, Thomas. So you can also find the entire list of all building blocks which are included with Automagica and are also included in the open source robot. You can find it on the GitHub as well, and also in our documentation. So what I will do now is I will show you briefly how you can use Automagica. I'm going to show you how to use it through the Automagica portal, which is the software as a service platform we offer for RPA. And I'm going to show you what the workflow is on getting started on building a robot, running a script, those kinds of things. And I'm also going to show you a new feature that we have since a month or a bit less than 2 weeks, which is the Automagica Recorder, which has been in heavy demand by our community, and it's currently in beta. So I will show you that as well. So if you go to portal.automagica.com or through the website, I'm just going to log in with my login. You can also sign up with GitHub. Once I'm logged in, I get access to the portal. I can see my bots. I can see that my robot is currently connected. I already installed it. If you haven't installed it yet, you get this screen and you can get started with a one-click installer. You can just click here. It will download a file. You can run it. After that, it takes like 2 minutes. You will have everything needed to get started building robots, to running robots, and everything. There is also instructions for Linux and also other operating systems. Here we also have like some part of our documentation with all the building block categories that we offer, and these are also fully searchable. So if you would like to do something in Excel, you can find all kinds of activities which use Excel and an example on how to use those building blocks within your automation scripts. Also, we have some get started fast examples at the bottom of this page in our portal, which basically allows you to get started with a canned example for very frequently used applications such as the browser, Excel, PowerPoint, working with Windows. There's also an example for working with OCR. We also have an OCR service. But for now, I'm just going to show you the browser example. So if I click Get Started, it will ask me to open Python. and it will open up a local instance of the Automagica lab. So the Automagica lab is basically our development environment. And for this development environment, you have access to everything that Automagica has to offer. So here you can see in the left, there's this bar for activities, which is also fully searchable. You can find all the activities Automagica has to offer. So working with files, working with PowerPoint, working with Outlook, all these kinds of building blocks, they are readily available through this sidebar, and it's also searchable. The cool thing about Automagica scripts, as some of you might recognize, this is based on Jupyter Lab. It's a Jupyter notebook that allows you to also document the automation within the automation. So it really allows you to keep things structured and see, okay, how you build the automation and provide with additional context on how the automation works. So in this browser automation example, basically what happens is the Chrome browser is started, the robot goes to Wikipedia, it enters a search term into the input field, and it will extract the information on the page for the search term robot, and it will put it in a text file on the desktop. So let me just run all these steps. What we will see, the browser will open. Once it's fully loaded, it opened the Chrome browser in an automated fashion. It will go to Wikipedia, it will search for robot, it will extract the text, close down the browser, and it will save it to a text file on the desktop. So let's see, we have a text file here, and this is basically the article that was on the page for the robot article on Wikipedia. So the new feature that I just mentioned now to you, the Automagica Recorder, you can basically access it by clicking on the Recorder button over here. So it's currently in beta, as you can see. If you click this, it will open up a new window. And basically this is a recorder for recording interactions that you have on your desktop. It allows you to record clicks, double clicks, right clicks, and so on, but also to extract information from the screen using OCR and other layers in the user interface. So let me just demonstrate it to you. I want to double click, for example, the recycle bin. Let me select it. So I have the recycle bin selected. Let me just click next. And what I will get is a very short ID for this particular UI element. And you can also share this ID with other people and they will be able to access this UI element as well. And they can use it within their automations with the simple line of double click and then the 4-character reference to this specific ID. So this is a new feature we just shipped and basically allows you to use the Automagica computer vision algorithms to detect elements on the screen and to interact with them.
Exactly. Perhaps to add, the reason why it was so popular in demand is that, as all of you probably know, one of the hardest things to do in RPA is to actually find the elements that you want to either click or type some text in or manipulate. So of course we do support all kinds of finding buttons with their technical element, their technical name. So of course you can still use the typical, for the browser example, you can still find the technical names or identifiers for the buttons. We also include other software like Windows-based applications, SAP, etc. But it can be quite tedious either to find these buttons. And on another level, if you are automating through, for example, Citrix or remote desktop, you have to rely on vision. So that's why we created this recorder, which is totally based on vision and some machine learning to find the elements on the screen, which makes it really easy and really fast to find buttons like Koen just showcased.
Yeah, exactly. And in addition to this, we are also working on other things to make automation even easier, also for non-developers. So initially we launched Automagica as a set of tools for developers to access all kinds of Python building blocks and functions to automate things you usually automate in an RPA process kind of way. Now we are actually building upon this engine, and we're building further. And things like this recorder is an example, but we're also looking into building more graphical interfaces for non-developers to use and to build automations in, because we have the engine, we have all the low-level work done. Now it's just easy to have like a graphical UI over this, and this is something we're working on as well.
Exactly.
So that's basically, that wraps it up for the demo. What I would suggest is try it out, download it from our website, or install it from the Python package repository. We also just launched on the Anaconda package repository. So feel free to try it out. You can ask questions on Telegram, you can ask questions on Discord, or create an issue on GitHub if you run into a problem, or have like a feature request or something you can't find in the standard library of the Automagica building blocks. So really looking forward to hear your feedback on that. Like Nandan mentioned, I also understood that there would be some questions. So I think we can proceed with those if that's okay for you, Nandan.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Koen, for that quick introduction. I just wanted to keep it more interactive this time and see how it goes.
Sure.
Sure. We have a little bit of less participants today, so we'll see how it goes. And so people participating, if you have any questions, please do type in the chat or even unmute and then you can ask. So Koen, I wanted to ask in terms of, you did mention SAP and before we get to the other questions, but SAP, so your computer vision, it can detect the SAP too, right? SAP screens and Salesforce and all that.
Yeah, so basically it works across any application. So
okay.
Let me just, I have a slide for this, just a second. So basically whatever application it is, it can, as long as it can access the screen, you can automate it. So whether it's Citrix or whether it's an Android emulator or even an iOS emulator, we've seen that as well. It can all be automated because it's purely relying on computer vision.
Okay, perfect. So JD Wilson has a question here. Can Automagica extract links from PDFs?
So I'm not sure whether we have something specifically for links. We do have something for images already, a building block to extract images. We also have building blocks for concatenating PDFs, for splitting PDFs, also for joining PDFs, but extracting links, not yet, but that's definitely a good suggestion. What I would suggest is create an issue on our GitHub requesting for the activity, and I'm sure that it will be easy to add to the library.
Okay,
it's something perhaps you could also try to do it with the OCR once again. If you can open the PDF, which we have building blocks for, we can easily extract the text. But like we mentioned, it's a fun addition. We could surely add it to our portfolio.
So oh, yeah, that's right. You're completely right, Thomas. There's the extract text building block, so it allows you to extract the text in the PDF as plain text, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so that way you can use like some clever string matching.
Actually, so one of the things that we see and why we think it's good to build on Python is, for example, for the more developer oriented in the audience, we are totally open to use the regular Python libraries in between the Automagica building block. So for example, in this case, you could use the Automagica building block, extract text from PDF to extract the plain text from a PDF file. And then you could use something like, for example, regex, which is used to find patterns in text, which is built in Python. You can easily use that to find like links, things starting with www or things like that. So that's what we think, what we see that our developer community uses a lot is the Python building blocks and generally Python in between the Automagica building blocks to build the logic basically.
Yeah, and that's also the whole reason why we built Automagica, because we had experience working with other tools, and either they require you to write some .NET in between or some VB, and basically, or you have to use like some proprietary language specific to the vendor. And this was something we weren't a big fan of. I mean, it's not like we were core Python developers, but we have dabbled with some Python in the past, for example, in data science and machine learning backgrounds. But we really missed this in the existing tools. And that's why we built Automagica on Python, because this allows us to build a cross-platform solution, something which is highly scalable, something which can also be containerized. We also have robots running in containers, so Linux containers. This allows us to basically scale up robots really fast. And I mean, if you look at the automation landscape as a whole, a lot of this is already happening on Unix and Linux-based systems. And basically, Windows is great for everything which is desktop, but automation usually extends beyond the desktop, like interacting with databases, all kinds of batch jobs which are running, machine learning. And basically, that's why we think that Python was the right choice to build Automagica on.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for that. And you did mention OCR. Which OCR do you use?
Yeah, so we have like a customized OCR. We provide it through an API service. So it's a service that we offer.
Okay, so it's your OCR or using someone else's OCR you're offering?
Yeah, so you can basically use either an open source OCR such as Tesseract,
okay,
or you can use our Automagica OCR service.
Okay. All right. And so I think that leads to the question about your orchestrator and, how do you do the orchestration? What are the features in control room?
Yeah, sure. That's a good point.
Yeah.
We do have some slides on that. So basically, how our infrastructure works is that we have perhaps we can show the infrastructure as well, Koen.
So people are also asking if it can be downloaded. So
yeah, sure. Perhaps we can show again where we can download it for the people who are tuning in a little later. If you go to automagica.com, you can see a big green button to download it with a one-click installer. It's only for Windows that we have a one-click installer. For Linux and Mac OS, you can install it through the command line. For the more Python developers, you can also install it through pip. So it's only the open source robot, but you can get started with that, of course. So pip install Automagica will install the open core, the robot that can perform the activities. And then on top of that, we have the Automagica portal, which is basically the orchestration undone, like you mentioned. And we briefly went over it. Perhaps you saw it in a flash when Koen showed it. But it provides all kinds of orchestration features, like, for example, queuing, the whole monitoring aspect. We have some intelligent queuing, so you can use multiple robots to perform the same task in parallel. If you have like a high volume of something, you can use multiple robots to perform the same task with some priority, etc. And then, of course, we have the whole enterprise feature thing, like audit logging. We have scheduling. You can also trigger a robot with an API call. You can trigger it with an email. We also have some further options, some further integrations now. Then, of course, there's the whole monitoring and reporting. You want to see what the robot did, what went right, what went wrong. So we have some extensive reporting and monitoring tools, which can either be sent through like web or email or SMS. We have all kinds of integration. A lot of people using Teams nowadays, we noticed. Quite some people are using Slack as well. So it seems to be a popular tool. People like getting info on their daily robot activity through Slack. And then, of course, we have the error handling, which we can perhaps go into a little bit more detail later on. But if something goes wrong, basically, you need to know what went wrong and why it went wrong. And then, of course, the whole portal is built around also having multiple robots. Whenever you have like one robot or multiple robots, you can always use them in a structured way for all your jobs, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to further add to what Thomas mentioned, how does this position between everything? I mean, you have the Automagica portal, you have the lab. So basically how it looks like, and this is also our business model. everything within the core is open source. So the bot is open source, the recorder, the lab, everything to build robots and to run the robots is open source and can be found on GitHub. What is not open source and how do we sustain a business? What is our business model? Is actually offering the Automagica portal, which offers the features that enterprises need. So managing the robots, like Thomas mentioned, audit logging, all these security features, scaling up robots, managing jobs, queuing jobs, running thousands of jobs for thousands of robots to perform. That's what we offer in like a commercial license through software as a service. So we can either offer it as a cloud solution, which we manage for our customers, or we can offer it as an on-premise deployment, which is usually in like a Kubernetes cluster or a Docker similar cluster or some other containerized deployment. We can also run it in like a hybrid cloud setting. So we're pretty flexible in terms of deployments. So that's basically how our architecture and business model fits together.
Okay, and then you have an agent on the desktop, which your portal connects to run the bots. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So how about, so you did talk about the business model. Where are your customers currently using Automagica?
Yeah, that's a good question, of course. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Can you feel free to add to it? We have quite a list. We have also quite some installs on Automagica. We're hearing lots of feedback from people who are using Automagica. We see people using it for some smaller tasks. So really people who are developing and using Automagica in some bigger projects. And then again, we have some people, of course, who use Automagica end to end. Some things that we see quite often are the typical RPA tasks. So I don't think we differ very much from the typical RPA use case. It's something that we see as well, of course. So typical things are data entry, data extraction. We also talk to some people who are currently using Automagica, and in these times there are a lot of repetitive tasks. People have to fill in forms, especially with the whole COVID crisis. Unfortunately, people get quite some tasks at their hand. We see that a lot of forms are being filled in, etc. Also with the help of Automagica, which is great to see. Then we get the typical name you probably all heard of is data bots. So basically bots transferring data between systems, synchronizing, making sure that data quality is correct. Then we have a lot of our use case, especially our production use cases, are in finance actually. So quite some, almost all companies that are using Automagica in production have either one or a lot of finance processes, which varies from payment collection, payment processing, intercompany recharges, making invoices, then again synchronizing data. We had a client using conversion rates as well. So keeping their conversion rate database up to date with an Automagica robot. So we see quite some different use cases. If you're interested, on our website on automagica.com/category use cases, we have some production cases which use Automagica end to end in some more serious processes. For example, we have some processes in healthcare who are using Automagica to handle some delicate processes. We have some stock listed companies who are using it in finance. So if you're interested, feel free to have a look at our website, and all the details are there as well.
All right. One question from Alan is, can we use this commercially for free? I mean, I think the bots can be used commercially for free, right? I mean, can you clarify on that?
Yeah, so we have a license which you can find in the GitHub. So basically the whole robot is open source and you can use it for free under the open source license. With regards to the portal, like I mentioned, so we are currently offering the portal for free under a community plan. So basically it allows you to use it for non-commercial or evaluation purposes. we're looking into releasing this as like a free tier, which can also be used commercially, but it will be limited in capabilities. But we generally offer this as a paid service. So the Automagica portal is offered as a paid service, and the robot and the lab, it's all open source. You can find it on GitHub.
Okay, thank you. Between attended and unattended automation, both can be done, right? And unattended, you would need to use the orchestrator. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, how we distinguish between the two is we see unattended really as the robot working in his own isolated environment. So that could be either like a virtual machine running somewhere in the cloud. It can be like a Docker container running like Ubuntu with like a virtual desktop. But usually the automations that run on these machines, they are triggered externally. So it's either an email that comes in, or it's like an SMS that comes in, or something which happens on a recurring basis, like on a schedule. So a schedule is triggered and then the robot starts. But it can also be like an API call, for example, from a business process management system like Visagi or Camunda, or something from IBM, or something open source like JBoss. So you can easily trigger robots, or at least jobs, creating jobs for robots to perform by using these external triggers. With regards to attended automation, we really see this as like assisted automation, so running on the user's desktop. And that way you can really trigger automations by pressing a keybind, or pressing on a button on the keyboard or on the screen.
Okay. Anyone have any follow-up questions, please let me know. One question here is that, do you have activities for SharePoint?
That's a good one, actually. I talked to someone a little bit earlier, and he was automating SharePoint. How he tried it in different ways. So one way he did it was through the browser, because SharePoint apparently has a pretty good browser interface. He used Automagica to find the buttons and to do what he wanted to do. I think he wanted to synchronize files. And then we were talking about how can he do it faster. So you can also synchronize SharePoint with your Windows folders. It's more like OneDrive. And then he used a simple move file from folder to folder activities, which of course we have for all platforms, and use this to synchronize between SharePoint folders. But then again, we do not have a dedicated activity for SharePoint, but if you can come up with some kind of use case, or some kind of somewhere where it could be useful, we could certainly look into it and perhaps build a blog for it. Yes.
Yeah, feel free to create an issue on our GitHub with a feature request label, and then we'll have our team look at it.
So do you have a list of activities somewhere?
Yeah, sure. So there's an overview on our GitHub with a very high level description. You can find it there. All the links are clickable, which will link to the documentation with a little bit more of extensive information on which parameters you can set and what it exactly does and what it returns. Also in the portal, you can search on multiple places for the activities. Almost all activities, a little bit careful to say, all of them have like an end-to-end example of a few lines of how to use them. So like 95% will work out of the box. Some of them will need some credentials. For example, SharePoint, you will need some credentials to try it out. But yeah, there's certainly an overview. We aim to have an example for all of them, because that's one of the harder things, right? So once you see an example, it's easy to get started with them.
Oh, okay, great. And people can contribute to by adding their own activities?
Yeah, either if you're a Python developer, of course, it's amazing. We have some people who have added their own activities, which we welcome highly, of course. But we understand that not everyone is capable or has the time to build an activity in Python. So whenever you're missing something like the activity for SharePoint, or the activities for extracting links from PDF, whenever you miss something, we are very happy to hear from it. Just create an issue on GitHub, and we can build it for the community.
And
in addition to that, you can also find us on Read the Docs. And you can also find the documentation for every activity there. So I'm sharing my screen as well.
yeah,
You can basically find every activity. You can find it here as well.
and if people need to build custom activities, they can do that too, right?
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
So one of the things that we spoke about earlier, and one of the things that's really at the core of Automagica, we still allow to have Python code written in between, right? So in the lab we had the example that Koen showed from the browser. It's totally possible to write Python in between to create either your own logic or your own building blocks or your own connection with any OS. We are open to build new building blocks. Of course, it's good for us as well to find out what you're missing, but you're totally free to write your own code in between.
Yeah.
And how about, AI is the rage right now, right? So how about AI activities, or how to integrate with, maybe a cloud AI? Or do you have some of your own AI activities?
Yeah, so basically that's also the whole reason we built Automagica on Python, is because if you look at all the developments and research which is being performed in this specific field, like deep learning, I mean, everything is in Python. All these deep learning frameworks, they offer Python bindings. So if you think of TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras, I mean, scikit-learn is a Python library. And then you also have the cognitive toolkit from Microsoft. They all have and offer Python bindings. So usually we already have like a built-in activity within Automagica to use like a TensorFlow model or these kinds of models. But even if it's not yet available, it should be really easy to use it in cooperation with Automagica. We also have a few production use cases where this company, they had a credit risk rating assessment model built in TensorFlow, and they were using it together with Automagica to put it into a Salesforce CRM. So they basically went through the Salesforce CRM, took the data out of Salesforce, put it into the model. The model would give a credit rating risk, and it would be fed back into Salesforce. That way, people in the field, the sales people working in the field, they would have access to these credit rating risk scores for their customers and offering their payment plans for their purchases.
Okay, great. That's great. Now let's cover two aspects of things people generally ask: security, because RPA security is something that comes up with all clients, right? So how do you ensure, or how do you assure people that Automagica is secure?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very important aspect, and that's something that we focus on heavily as well. So one added benefit of creating our robots open core is, of course, the transparency. So the fact that all the code of the robot is on GitHub is one thing for bug fixing and people trying out all the different features, but also the aspect of transparency. Because in the end, it's the robot itself, the open core robot, that works on premise of the client. It's really the robot that works on the desktop environment of a client. And then we have the cloud, the portal, which actually orchestrates the robots. But it's an important detail to add that no data is actually transmitted between the cloud and the robot, except for instructions, like when the robot has to perform what, when the robot has to do a certain job, or what the outcome was. Of course, we can do that, so we can send some reports back to the portal, to the cloud portal, but it's not enabled by default. By default, we do not send any sensitive data back to the cloud. So that's one important aspect. Of course, the transmission that is being done, like signaling API triggers, are of course all encrypted. And then we have the possibility to work on premise, because we have some clients. Most of the time, there are some larger companies, some stock listed companies who prefer to have everything within their environment. So that means that nothing is shared, no databases are shared, no environments are shared. Everything is held within their their company on their on-premise. So that's one option, of course. And then there are tons of security standards that we try to comply. Of course, we have some proven use cases of robots working in healthcare, some larger companies, which all require, of course, some attention to the security. So if someone has some questions about that, we're more than happy to talk about that and also to learn from, because that's something that is really central for us and something that's really important when we build our architecture in mind.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we also offer specific security features that enterprises usually request. So, for example, single sign-on, either through LDAP or Active Directory, these kinds of things we offer in our deployments, in our enterprise deployments, but also things like two-factor authentication, using a second authentication method, for example, a token generator, time-based token generator. We offer these features to our enterprise customers as well.
Okay, and how about role-based security?
So how role-based security is set up within Automagica is basically it's set up in a way that you work in teams. So you have a team, for example, for finance, or you could define it at a lower level. So like accounts payable, for example. And you would have a team, and people could be invited into that team. The manager of the portal can administer that as well, and access to it as well, and connect it to like an Active Directory account or your single sign-on identity. So you work in this team, and within this team, you have access to the bots which are assigned to this team, and you have access to the automation scripts which are being managed within this team. So how it is set up is basically you have these isolated teams within the organization of which you can, as a user, can be a part of. And for IT administrators to provide you with access to the things you need and to the things you need access to. You can also be part of multiple teams. We see this a lot. For example, more IT related people within the organization, they usually are active cross-departmental, and they have access to like multiple teams, but that's the way how the role-based security is set up.
Okay, thank you. Let's switch to exception handling. How do you do that in Automagica? I think you covered it a bit earlier, but want to talk about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so one of the things that we see for both development and running in production is that error exception is something that is important, because it tends to happen, of course. So in RPA, as you all know, everyone who worked in RPA, there are exceptions, and there are some unknown exceptions, and there are known exceptions, of course. So we do it at different levels. So of course, at script level, that's something that Python developers are probably familiar with. Whenever an element can't be found, or whenever something weird happens, we use, of course, the Python built-in exception handling, because it's great, and people who use Python, they already know it. So that's something that we, of course, integrated in our Automagica library as well. But more on a high level, that's the development part of it. Of course, people who use it, which are often business users or people who have no real message in development or developer-oriented exception handling. We have some things in place to follow up our robots. So one thing is, of course, to send reports. The robot can say, okay, I've done these jobs, and they went okay. Except for this item, I need your help. So that's one thing. We have all kinds of connectors for that, which we went over earlier, like Slack and Microsoft Teams and email. Must admit, still most teams prefer email. So that's a widely used thing in business. And then we also have the edit functionality, which we added in our latest version to add a screenshot to the robot. So sometimes something happens, or the robot tries to look up a certain data entry, and he cannot find it. We also immediately add a screenshot to the email, to the report. We're also currently looking at the possibility to even add a short video of what the robot did. That's a feature that's requested from our users. So yeah, of course, handling exceptions is basically done on two levels: one for developers, and then secondly for the more business-oriented people who just like to see what went okay and what didn't.
Okay, perfect. So let's switch tracks in terms of how people can use it. One question was, what level of Python knowledge would be required to work with Automagic? I think you mentioned that it's not much, but how much, and can like non-developers do it?
Yeah, exactly. So like I mentioned before, is initially we built Automagica more for a developer. So from a developer perspective to automate UIs. And basically our end game is to make it as easy as possible for everyone to automate work with Automagica. And we have a roadmap for this, and we have progressed quite a long way already to make this as easy as possible, even for non-developers. So one example is in January this year, we released the Automagica Lab, which I showed you, which offers you like a drag and drop interface to provide you with also lots of examples on building these automations. It's still a script that the user sees, but it allows the user to document everything around the script and build the script through a clickable and draggable interface. Then we have the Automagica Recorder, which I also showed you, which we just released 2 weeks ago. And then we also have something which will be available soon. And this is the highest level, or at least the lowest level, the low code, no code approach to allow you to build automations in Automagica with Python in a visual way. So actually building like a flow chart for this automation and automate from there.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Exactly. It's like Koen mentioned, we've been working on the engine mainly. So we wanted to have the security, the architecture, the scalability, and all our building blocks. We wanted to focus on that first. And like Koen mentioned, right now we're building layers of abstraction on top of it to make it easier for non-developers and also faster, hopefully, for developers. Because we will always allow to have Python code written in between, even in the Automagica flow. We will give developers the option to still write Python, but we just want to include more features for non-developers to drag and drop, to visualize, and to make it look a little bit easier and nicer for people who are new to Python.
Exactly.
Very good. Very good. That's very interesting. All right. So I have one more question, and probably we'll close with that unless others have any questions. So if you have any questions, please add now. Any more questions, I mean. Last question, why use Automagica? And that's, I think, very popular question. Why use Automagica when you have UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and also other open source options? I know you differentiate by Python, but other than that, what are your key salient strong areas?
Thomas, if you could
yeah, sure. So of course, one thing is the open source. We're not unique in that. We have some other solutions you even highlighted on this channel. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I see Alan in the room as well. He has a great solution which is also open source, which he talked about all the advantages in his great tool as well. So that's one thing, of course, but it also makes it easier for the community. So of course you have the commercial user, but you have also the people who want to use it in a non-commercial way, which we allow with our open source community. Then I know we said it again and again that we're built on Python. It's something that is nice for people who know Python, because the resources are widely available. I mean, just go to Google or to YouTube and you'll find hours and hours of Python content for free, which can be picked up quite fast as well. Which is nice for the non-commercial user, but also some of our commercial clients. They choose Automagica for this reason. Because they already have the resources in-house. They have people who know Python. They do not have to learn a new language. They do not have to follow expensive trainings. They do not create a vendor lock-in because they are not dependent on us. We are not the people who who build the robots or who provide people who can build the robots. Now we build the tool and we do everything we can to have the end user build robots with their knowledge in-house. So that's something that we see is often a selling point for us, that they already have Python developers and they do not wish to create a vendor lock-in by learning a proprietary new language. Then of course Python, it's robust. It's been working on multiple platforms for a long time. Right now we focus on Windows, but we see a lot of Windows and Linux, but we see some Mac users as well. So not all activities work on Mac, but most of them do. And then Koen also briefly mentioned that we see a lot of cell phone automation right now with the Automagica recorder. So as long as you have a screen, you can automate it. So we see that some people are using it to automate Android or iOS for either testing or automation. And then, of course, we want to be lightweight. So we worked with other tools, and we noticed that it's quite heavy in installation. You need basically you need an IT manager for it. You need to set up all kinds of servers. Some additional services like Microsoft-based databases, all kinds of additional licenses as well. We want to keep it clean and lightweight. That way, it's also more. That's something that's often underrated. We think easy installation is also for bigger corporates. It makes the whole process a lot easier. And then for the people interested in more technical details, we have some comparison on our website as well about the technical requirements for servers, for additional licenses, etc. So feel free to check that out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, in addition to what Thomas mentioned, of course, the topic we mentioned earlier. So, I mean, it's really close to the whole AI and deep learning advancements we're seeing as well. So, I mean, it's really easy to use Automagica together with, for example, your data science or AI models that you've trained. That's one thing. And obviously, since we're not bound to any operating system, you can also run these robots in like a very lightweight container, like a Linux container, which is somewhere running in the cloud, headless, without anything visible or attached to it. And this really allows you to scale it. You don't need a Windows desktop machine, which is usually overkill for the tasks that need to be performed. Like for Windows, you already need like gigabytes of RAM, a decent CPU or additional cores. For Automagica, you don't need that. You can run it on a single core, or 500 meg machine in the cloud or a container in the cloud. And that basically allows you to scale it really fast. So once you've developed an automation and you need to perform it 1,000,000 times, you can easily scale it up to 1,000,000 containers and perform the job in a couple of minutes.
And can you run more than one bot on one machine, or is it one machine per bot?
You can run multiple bots on one machine. If they're interacting with the same desktop, that's usually a challenge. So if you have multiple robots working in Windows next to each other, we wouldn't advise that. We would advise to have like an isolated environment. So a virtual desktop or a container like I just mentioned, or running under different user accounts. We've seen this as well. So those are the possibilities that we see.
Interesting. So I think, yeah, not proprietary. That's a key differentiator. It's Python. It's freely available, and I thought, you know, being the language of choice for AI and data science, that's also a great differentiator. So yeah, that's good to see. I don't see any more questions on the chat, so I think we can end it there. Thank you so much. I hope I'm saying your name right, Koen and Thomas. Thank you so much for joining today and sharing about Automagica. So for everyone, I will be sharing some resources. So Koen and Thomas, if you can share more links maybe in one place, I can share it with the people so that they can get started with Automagica and even contribute to Automagica if required, right? If they like it, right? So that's it for today. Thanks everyone for joining. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the invitation, Nandan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.